Welcome to this demo of Rebase. This demo is going to provide a high-level example of Rebase, and then further demos will show specific features in more detail. The example we'll be using for this demo is a research institution that runs several skin tests on a set of children over a certain period of time. They will then use the results to produce a set of statistics and reports. So they will be collecting data relating to the patients and the results of the skin tests each time the children visit. Before we look at how to set up Rebase for this type of project, let's look at the end result first to see what we're trying to achieve. This patient and test occasion data view has been set up to collect, process and output all the required data. When the view is opened, we can see it has two tabs. One tab to collect the patient details and another to collect the data for each child's test occasion. After the view has been set up, this is the main window you'll be focused on, as it is where you can add new records, edit records, delete records, import data from spreadsheets, export data to spreadsheets, run reports, or search for data. Later demos will go into the specific details of these features, as well as some of the other options available, such as record locking and flagging, data validation, charts, mail merges, and much more. Now let's start at the beginning to see how this was created. Navigating around Rebase is easy. Views is the main section you'll be focused on after everything has been set up. Everything else is contained within the settings page. Some of the highlighted features are managing your Rebase users, setting up your questions, which we'll go to in more detail in a moment, changing your password, managing your backups, or viewing audit trails, which record details of every action performed by any user in Rebase, and much more. So if this is the first time you're logging into Rebase, you'd want to start by setting up your questions. This section acts like a repository for all your questions. You will only need to add each question once, as they can later be placed into one or more views. The left-hand tree acts like a folder system, much like in a Microsoft Windows environment, and allows you to categorize your questions into a format that will be easy for you and your users to find. The right-hand grid is where the questions will be displayed. Clicking on a folder in the left-hand tree will display all questions contained inside that folder. First, let's look at the folder tree in more detail. In this example, we can see a folder set up to store all patient questions, and a folder to store all test occasion questions. You may also have noticed a bold question inside the topmost folder. This is an ID question, meaning everything inside this folder and all its subfolders is dependent on this patient ID. So for example, when entering patient personal details in a view, they must of course start by stating which patient ID the data refers to. When deciding whether an ID question is required, you would need to think in terms of the frequency the data needs to be collected. For example, we know that each patient will require several test visits. Therefore, in a test occasion folder, we will have to add a bold test occasion ID question in order to identify each of those patient visits. This therefore means any question contained within the test occasion folder and any of its subfolders is dependent on the patient ID and the test occasion ID. When adding or editing a question, you'll be provided with the following wizard. This is where you can enter the question, any additional details you want the users to see when entering the data, set the abbreviation, which is the column title used in grids and spreadsheets, and choose the data type of the information you want to collect, such as text, number, date, lookup, which provides the users entering the data with a drop-down list of options to choose from, calculations, which can be used to calculate the results of a combination of other columns such as patient's current age, sales total, etc., and auto increment. Many more data types will soon be available, including currency, email, file, so you can upload files to Rebase, and many more. You can also set whether the question needs to be an ID question and whether to alert the user if they enter a blank value. You can then set validation rules for the data you collect. For example, for a number you can set the minimum and maximum numbers to accept. If the user enters data outside this range, they will be provided with an error message and will not be able to save the data. Similarly, when importing data, the system will ensure it is within this range. Now that we've added our questions, we won't need to add them again. We can simply proceed to creating the views to reflect our needs. So we've already seen what a view looks like after it's been set up, but let's now see how we did this. Choosing to add or edit a view will provide you with the following view setup wizard. Step 1 is general information about the view, including the view name and the view administrators. Later demos will go into more detail in relation to user roles, including super administrators, view administrators, staff accounts, and read-only accounts. Step 2 is where you can categorize your questions into tabs. Inside each tab, you will be provided with all the folders and questions you created earlier in the questions section. You can then add questions to the tab simply by ticking individual questions or entire folders to add all of its contents. Once you've added the questions you want into the tab, you can then enter the order mode to position them into the order that best suits your needs. Step 3 filters will best be described using another example which will be demonstrated in a moment. Step 4 is where you can assign users to the view, either with full access or read-only access rights. After assigning the user to a view, next time they log in, they'll be able to access the view to begin processing the data. Step 5 is for adding additional options such as default sort column and order. Step 6 informs you the view is now complete and you can begin processing your data. To demonstrate the Step 3 filters, imagine a scenario where multiple research departments was part of the same project. Each site would want to collect their own data, but then the project administrator would want to have access to all site data combined. To do this, we'd create a view and then replicate it 3 times. In this example, one for the site in the UK, one for the site in Canada, and one for the project administrator. Now, when we open the view for the UK, we'd make sure in step 2 to add a question called Centre, which would provide a drop-down list of all the centres that are part of this project. Then, when we navigate to step 3 filters, we can add a filter to ensure it only ever shows data or allows users to input data relating to the centre in the UK. So when we open the data view, we will see it only shows data relating to the UK. Likewise, if we open the view for Canada, we'd see it only shows data relating to Canada. Or if we open the view for the project administrator, which doesn't have a filter on it at all, it will show all the data from all the sites combined. So as you can see, even though we have presented a basic example, the system is easy to use and provides very powerful and flexible features that sit on top of views, which allow you to tailor the system in any way that best suits your needs. In addition, you are not alone. Our support team are always on hand to help structure your questions and views in a way that best reflects your requirements, or to help with any additional questions you may have. Thank you for listening.